Welcome to this episode of the Ninth Grade Experience podcast. If you're listening in order, you may have heard there our episode with the freshman boys basketball team. And this year, we wanted to introduce the freshman girls basketball team to you as well. Last year, that was our most popular episode, was the freshman boys team. So we're going to see if the girls can get their booster club ready and get everyone out listening to this episode as well, too, to see if they can compete with the boys here for total listens. But I thank Juliana Stichter and Alexis Krum and Taylor Gitski, who are here today representing the freshman girls basketball team, to tell us a little bit about their season, how it was as an athlete, dealing with everything that happened during the winter months, and kind of just a recap of their season. So ladies, thanks a lot for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Yeah, we talked a little bit beforehand, and I think as students, when they come on to the podcast and there's more than one of them, they're all used to these school-wide Zoom rules where we're all silenced. So now it's like they're all unmuted and they're kind of waiting. They don't want to talk on top of each other. So we'll get them used to it as we kind of go along here. So hopefully you've all seen some of our episodes here throughout the school year, either on advisory or other spots. So hopefully you all know the first question that we ask is, what has your ninth grade experience been like? And you can answer it any way you'd like. You can answer it as an athlete. You can answer it as a student. You can answer it as a combination of either. But what has it been like? We're in March of this crazy year, almost to the end here. But what has your ninth grade experience been like? And whoever wants to start can start.
Taylor, you can start.
Okay. Coming from like a basketball player perspective, I think that like my experience was pretty complicated, I would say. And I had mixed feelings about it because I loved playing with like the girls. And I think that the most complicated part was building those bonds, that it took away the time that we had when we were off, or like practice got canceled, because some of us knew each other, but like I didn't know Jules until some practices, and it took a lot of time to build those, to know what other people's strengths and weaknesses were, and all that stuff. And then coming from a student's perspective, I think that it's very challenging keeping up with all the work and the classes, and then all the teachers cramming in work and then taking tests like every week. I just think that it was hard to keep up, but everyone seemed to manage through. So, yeah.
And then Juliana or Alexis, how about you? How would you describe your ninth grade experience thus far? And we'll come back to some of the stuff that Taylor was talking about, especially building those team bonds up. I think that was something that came up when we talked to the boys, and I think it's a really interesting kind of subject to talk about. But what about for you two? Any different feelings about the beginning of your freshman year?
Yeah, I agree. It was definitely quite a journey from school. It's just different. Transforming from going into online school, it's very different. And then from basketball, it was very difficult with all the changes. But like Taylor said, it was cool, like building bonds with these new girls and teammates throughout this whole pandemic. I think we still, even though it was very difficult, we still found ways to work through it.
I agree, because I love making friends out of playing sports, and I just feel like it was a lot harder because we weren't really allowed to go near each other. We always had to keep away, so it was just a weird experience trying to talk to someone and become friends with them, and from such a distance. And that's with school too. It's really hard to make friends right now, I feel like, for a lot of people.
And it's interesting you say that, because I think one of the things that came up when we talked to the boys, like I said, was that building a team. And they talked about how it was predominantly, the group was from Ayer. Do you know the split, like how many from LMMS or Ayer, and did you kind of know each other beforehand? I know before we started talking, a few of you were playing AAU basketball together, but coming from the two different schools, how was that trying to kind of form that cohesive team unit?
I think it was pretty split. I feel like there was a little more Ayer people, but I think we all worked together. We didn't really let it affect us too much. It wasn't that big of a split. We all kind of came together in the end.
Most of us knew each other from before seasons, or just social media, through that kind of stuff. Other girls, like, I had no idea who they were, but most girls I knew, so it was kind of easier for me to know my team.
I personally came from a completely different school from Berks County, and it just felt normal coming here. Everyone was very welcoming, and we all just came together as a team, and it wasn't the easiest, but I think we all created bonds pretty easily when playing basketball.
Was there a time in the season where you kind of actually felt like a team? Like, how long into the season did it take? Because I know that here at the high school, even like tryouts were postponed. Like, they were supposed to be like near the end of November. And my son's at LMMS and he was able to try out at their normal time, but I know Ire and the high school did not. So it was like until December that I think you could all try out, and then they selected the team. So, and then we had the stoppages and all the different stuff through the winter. So at what point in the season did it actually feel like that you were all like a cohesive team?
In my opinion, the first game, like, you could definitely tell that we all knew each other, but I would say, like, this, when we played Central the second time,
That's what I was going to say.
That there was like so much going on, and that we were such a good team, and we worked so well together. Like, we came together in that game to win it in the end.
I agree.
And about what point of the season was the second Central Catholic game?
That was actually more recently. That was like our third to last game, I think.
And that's, and they had a 10-game season this year. They went 5-5, split the season here. They were playing teams only in Lehigh County. So they made it took till that seventh game, about what you're saying, seventh or eighth game, where kind of coming together, you finally hit a stride as a team. And it's, it's really interesting to see that, because, teams that are still playing, like varsity teams, it seems like they're kind of just hitting their stride now with like kind of forming that team unity. But for you, it took like 7 games into the season, which, is a pretty long time considering normally teams, you're practicing every day and those kinds of things. But in this current situation, I would imagine that, did you ever have like a week where you were able to practice like all 5 days or play games like all 5 days? I feel like you probably didn't even have one consecutive week of basketball every day. I can't imagine you did. I don't think my son ever did. And I would imagine you were all in the same boat.
I don't think so, especially with the snow and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, because normally, like when you get to the high school level, I know it's kind of different at the middle because they don't practice necessarily every day. But I know once you get to the high school, it's everyday practice, and the times are pretty set. So you're doing that. But now in your first season here at the high school level, you think you're going to be signing up and playing every day, and you probably didn't have 1 week during the entire season, like you just said, where you were all together. So I'm sure that made it really difficult and kind of meshing everybody together and kind of working through that. So what was your opinion about playing through it all during the season? I know there were lots of stoppages and starts and dealing with all the different issues that were going on. How was it like as mentally to kind of get yourself prepared to play, and then you sat for 3 weeks and then had to get back on to things? Like, how was that to deal with those like kind of ups and downs of the season?
I think that for me, looking back at it, I think that it really helped me to be, looking back at it, I think that it helped all of us grow as people, as teammates. And I think that'll help us in the future. But in the moment, I was so worried about everything. I was so worried about how I would play. Like, my whole mind just set on, oh my gosh, don't mess up. Like, it was even worse this year than it has been in the past, just because of that pressure and not having practice.
Yeah, I agree. I think it made us all stronger individuals, especially because Coach Corolla really helped us like bring this all together. Like, he made this such an easy experience that didn't even like feel different. Like, he just made it, I don't know. It was just something about his coaching just really made this experience like great, and I didn't want it to end.
Yeah, especially when it came to the snow, like all the changes. We've got changes left and right, there would be days where I'd be like mentally prepared for our game tomorrow, and then it'd be canceled, and then when time came, then I wasn't really mentally prepared for that game because it's like,
So yeah, and I think all those are really interesting. And Taylor, I really like what you said earlier, like about the pressure to succeed. Like normally in a regular season, I think I know the boys team freshman last year, I just know because I know the number, they played 26 total games. And then this year they played 10, you played 10. So when you're playing fewer games, that pressure to succeed and like, you only have so many times to be out on the court and to play. Like, was that a really like, I didn't even think of that when I was talking to them, but like how, and you kind of said that you kind of did feel that a little bit. Like, was that something that was kind of in the back of all of your heads? Like anytime you played, it's like, one, you really may not have known if it was going to be the last time you played all season because the way things were going, like they could have shut it down at any point. They made it through the season, but like, was that something that you thought about? Like, this might be the last time I play for the entire year.
yes, for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I don't know. I just think I didn't even really think about that, but that must've been really like it's almost like every game is like a playoff game. Like you never know if there's going to be another game kind of to kind of right the ship and get things going if you kind of don't have a good game. So I guess that did add a lot of pressure to it. Were any of you like kind of worried playing about like any sort of like, I know you had to play with masks and I know you had to do the distancing. And I think it was you, Juliana, that said earlier about like how people had to be apart and all the other things. Like I'm sure on the bench, you have to be like staggered and all the other things that you see, like when you're watching games on TV, but like, were any of you ever worried about that part of it during the season? Or like once you hit the court, you're just playing no matter what?
I wasn't really worried. I mean, yeah, when I hit the court, like I didn't really care, but it was just very difficult and it just really was sad that we had to like even on the bus, like on our way to games or after games, we couldn't sit together as a team. We had to like sit like every other seat, like diagonal from each other. We couldn't even sit together. It was just all very different this year, and it definitely ruined some opportunities.
Yeah, and it also like when we would play against other teams, you couldn't get as close as it felt like comfortably like playing basketball. Like I had numerous times where refs told me I had to back off of people, but it just didn't like feel right because I couldn't feel like I was playing fully.
Oh, that's interesting. So the refs actually said that you were too close to people?
Yeah, I wasn't allowed, like, I play with my hands sometimes, which isn't really good, but I wasn't allowed to, like, even touch people or anything like that. Like, I had to stay away for the most part.
Oh, that's like weirdly interesting that they would tell you that during the course of the game. The refs would be like, "You're too close." I was nothing. My son never communicated that to me about what was going on in his games or anything like that. So it's just kind of interesting that maybe every ref was kind of different about that. But I didn't even think that they would be saying like, "You're too close." Like, how do you play defense on somebody if you're not like really close to them? That's really bizarre. How about you, Taylor? Anything like as you were kind of feeling through the season? I know you kind of mentioned it being a very weird feelings about that, but like safety or anything like that as you were going through, was that ever on your mind at all?
I mean, I wasn't really worried because I think by the time we played our first game against DRF, I think we were like, I don't, do we have to wear masks for that first game? I don't think we did.
Yeah,
Or
I
did
think
we?
we did.
Okay, but so the practices before that, he kind of led us to that point wearing the masks while we run, and I think it was just so much easier playing with that then. And then by the end of the season, we were completely fine with it. Like no one had any issues with it or anything, and everyone brought their own water. Like everyone was hydrated. I think we were all prepared.
Yeah, all the different things you don't normally think about, things like, bringing your own water and those things are usually just like, it's all part of the team activities. And I think it was you, Alexis, that just talked about like one of the reasons you like playing sports is for that team building, the team camaraderie. And then when you kind of have to sit, like the bus thing is interesting too. It's like, that's the time when you get to like bond after the game or, even though I find it hard to believe, I'm sure unless you're not allowed to have your phone on the bus, I just imagine everyone in high school sitting on the phone on the bus with their heads down, but maybe that's not maybe if you're part of the team, it's kind of not cool to kind of have your face buried in the phone. But it's just one of those things where you don't, again, like we did so much during the winter of trying to have people in the building and trying to do athletics where maybe some of the things that people really like about playing sports and being involved in teams were kind of diminished a little bit. But did it make you all appreciate having like when we get back to quote whatever normal is going to be, like does it make you appreciate that part of being part of a team a little bit more?
Yeah, I'm definitely grateful to even have a season throughout this pandemic.
Yeah, and again, I think that's a sentiment from a lot of people. I think like, a lot of schools in other parts of the country didn't necessarily take the chance to do it, but you were able to get 10 games in and made it through the season pretty, hopefully everyone was intact there by the end, and just kind of an appreciation for that. So is everyone ready to play with masks going forward?
I mean, it would.
I'm ready, but it's just
It's annoying.
Yeah.
The boys all right away answered no. They were all done with it. So you all at least gave it a second thought where they were just like, nope, we're done. I don't want to deal with that anymore. So here, I'm going to ask one question here, and this is going to embarrass him. So you don't have to tell an embarrassing story, but do you have one good Coach Corolla story that will not necessarily embarrass him, but or something that I know, Alexis, you were talking about the way that he kind of helped through the season and kind of made it, a pleasurable experience and kind of eased a lot of stresses about different things that were going on. But is there anything else you want to tell everyone listening about Coach Corolla and during the season? Not just you, but any of you in general, or a good Coach Corolla story?
Well, we didn't have enough girls, so if we wanted to like play with like 5-on-5, Coach Corolla would play with us, which definitely was something fun because he would tell us about how he would coach football and he would like play with them, and he would always talk about how he's not in shape and stuff. And it was just so fun.
Coach liked to block my shots in practice all the time. No one else's, but he enjoyed blocking mine. And I think that Coach Corolla is a very awesome coach. He's the type of coach that you want, no matter what sport you're playing, you want him as your coach. He communicates a lot with us. He's very open to like any questions or anything school related, basketball related, anything. And I would say he doesn't embarrass himself that much. Like looking, like he didn't.
He made every practice like enjoyable though. Like I looked forward to going to practice. But one memory I do remember that we all shared with him was one day we were on the bus and he had these socks on and they had like a face on it and we had no clue who it was. And then come to find out we're all like laughing at his socks and stuff, and it was his daughter.
Oh. Well, I actually have a pair of socks with my son's face on it too. So I guess that's just one of those parent things. You get a pair of socks with your kid's face on it. So one final question here about Mr. Corolla before we go. So how's his game? What's his move? Does he have like a go-to move?
He definitely enjoys blocking people's shots. He's a defensive player.
He fits into the Emmaus program mold. Then defense, I'm sure defense. He talks about defense all the time. The boys talked about defense. It's kind of one of those Emmaus traditions there. So he's a shot blocker. Does he have an outside game at all, or does he just try to go into the post?
He didn't really shoot. He doesn't like to shoot at practice.
You know what? He's a post player, but he doesn't like to shoot. And you know what? That fits Mr. Corolla to a T. He likes to spread the wealth around, he's going to be embarrassed that we even talked about this, but I thought it was kind of funny to bring it up. So as we kind of wind down here, I know that Juliana and Alexis are going to be playing AAU basketball in the near future. Taylor is leaving here and getting ready for softball in the next couple of weeks here. But what do you think for the future of Emmaus girls basketball? They won a district playoff game this year for the first time in a long time. It's kind of like been a program that, it's kind of been there. It's one of those like sleeping giants kind of ready to explode a little bit here with the right group of people. So do you think your group and the group coming through is the group that's going to get Emmaus girls basketball back on the map here?
I personally do. I think we're going to have a really great seasons in the future. I think like just us, like the 9th grade team, freshmen, we had some chemistry. We're still learning how to play with each other, but we're getting there. And then we're going to have to learn how to play with these older girls coming up the next season. But I think we'll get there. And I think we can definitely be on the map, like you said.
I think that when I look at the freshman girls who are on JV and varsity that played freshman last year, and then looking at us, I think that there is some like potential there for that freshman group to like have a great seasons together.
I agree with both. I think if we all continue to work together and we all practice, I think we could really go places.
And like I said to the boys, I said, I can't wait till 3 years from now when you're all seniors and, you know, winning districts in league championships, and who knows where else you'll all wind up. You'll look back and you'll be like, man, I can't believe in my freshman year, I was on that little podcast and talked about freshman basketball. And here we are 3 years later, you know, winning all this cool stuff. So again, thanks to Juliana, thanks to Alexis, and thanks to Taylor for taking some time out today to fill us in on the freshman girls basketball team, and we look forward to your continued success.